May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable to you, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Please be seated. Good morning. Of the many pictures we see of Jesus throughout the Gospels, the King of Kings, the miracle worker at Cana, the healer, the teacher, the deliverer, the sacrificial lamb, the resurrected, today's Jesus is my favorite. Jesus, the exhausted, Jesus, the exasperated. A Jesus that is very clearly divine. He walks on water, but a Jesus who is also experiencing very real human feelings. We see in the Gospel of Matthew these last few weeks that Jesus has healed a man with a withered hand. He has taught parable after parable, hoping his followers, and definitely his apostles, would understand him, would understand his Father, would finally get the message. It is being noticed that Jesus is fulfilling Isaiah's prophecy. Here is my servant, whom I have chosen, my beloved, with whom my soul is well pleased, and in his name the Gentiles will hope. Jesus cast out demons from possessed people, not just a possessed person, but a man who is both blind and mute, a triple blessing. Jesus then returns to his hometown and his family. Does he get a grand party or an honored greeting? No, they are offended. He's just a carpenter's son. How can he preach? How can he teach? Today's gospel, in light of Jesus' journey these last few weeks, points us in the direction in which we should go. Jesus made the disciples get on the boat. The Greek word used in this instance is anakazo, which means compelled. Jesus compelled them to get on the boat. He needed a minute, or based on this pericope, 12 hours or so. Jesus had just lost his dear cousin, John the Baptist, in the most brutal way imaginable. Yet while he still grieves, he preaches, teaches, and feeds over 5,000 people. You can imagine the impact of the people being fed, especially through miraculous means. Even the disciples were hesitant to leave Jesus' side. Everyone wanted a piece of him, just to touch the hem of his cloak. Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead to the other side. We all know how it feels when you've given until you have nothing left to give, and the world seems insatiable in its demands. He needed quiet. He needed connection with his Father. He needed to fill the tank and not keep giving. Likely, Jesus was exhausted. Can you relate? Jesus sets an example for us. When life has been too much, when you have given overly much to others, when you are grieving, climb your mountain and reside for a while in the presence of the divine. Evelyn Underhill, an Anglican mystic and theologian, writes about her journey up the invisible mountain when she found herself spiritually homeless. While climbing her mountain, Evelyn would ask herself, where can I best serve God? Her conclusion was always to feed God's sheep where she found them. After Jesus refuels and descends the mountain back to shore, we see that he too feeds God's sheep exactly where they are, walking over the seas, walking to his disciples who are on a boat. I like to imagine in this moment what Jesus might be thinking. My disciples need me. Here I am. I'm coming to you. I just needed a moment to be alone, to be with my Father. But what happens in return? Jesus' disciples, though they have just seen him heal, teach, preach, exercise, feed, still they are terrified, and they thought he was a ghost. How did they not know it was Jesus? Did they not know still that Jesus is the Messiah? He is the Son of God. He is the fulfillment of the prophecy. Well, no. Apparently, Jesus' disciples were not paying attention. And so I wonder, is this exasperated Jesus? We can completely relate to not feeling heard or understood or seen. We can relate to having to prove ourselves over and over, or encounter relationships or conversations we have again and again, but still it seems to fall on eyes that do not see and ears that do not hear. I'd love to have a cup of tea with exasperated Jesus. Maybe not. I must exasperate Jesus quite often myself, but that's a different sermon for another day. The disciples are terrified. Does Jesus roll his eyes and throw up his hands? Maybe, but no. When we keep giving to the point of exhaustion, and even after attempting to be understood, to heal, to serve, to set free, and still we are not seen, not heard, perhaps not appreciated or misunderstood, remember the patience of exasperated Jesus. He walks even in the wind and the rain and the storms. Jesus walks on the water of the sea just to be with us. When your efforts feel in vain, give them to exasperated Jesus, and he will find a way forward. Now, Peter, as often Peter does in the Gospels, tries to flip the script on Jesus, saying, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." Peter does not take accountability for his blindness. Now, I've invited the choir and anyone who might want to sing. I'm just going to say the line. This is from my favorite verse from a Shape Note hymn that is often deleted. The words are, "When I was sinking down beneath God's righteous frown, Christ laid aside his crown for my soul." Thank you. Righteous frown. Those are the words that speak to me, and why I'm willing to bet that this verse is often omitted. The picture of Jesus being disappointed with our unbelief is devastating. When Peter was sinking, this is where exhausted and exasperated Jesus bridges the gap. As Peter yet again says, "If it is you, if," Jesus comes through saying, "Peter, Peter, still you don't know me." But Jesus doesn't stay in the righteous frown mode for long. He crosses the depths, reaches through our fears, our doubts, and the storms. Jesus lays aside his crown. He does not hold us in contempt. Jesus understands our humanness because he was fully human. He not only understands when those fears, challenges, and storms exhaust and exasperate us, but he also knows the terror that shakes us to the very core. Jesus bridges that gap and he calms the storm. It has been suggested in many New Testament commentaries that this is really bad. Oligopistos, of little faith, was actually a term of endearment and not an admonishment. When we see Jesus amidst all the swirls and the storm of life, remember, Jesus lays aside his crown for our souls. And finally, I would like to leave you with a blessing from John O'Donohue. This is an excerpt from his Blessing for One Who is Exhausted. The light in the mind becomes dim. Things you could take in your stride before now become laborsome events of the will. Weariness invades your spirit. Gravity begins falling inside of you, dragging down every bone. You have traveled too fast over false ground, and now your soul has come to take you back. Take refuge in your senses. Open up to all the small miracles you rushed through. Become inclined to watch the way of rain when it falls slow and free. And gradually, you will return to yourself, having learned a new respect for your heart and the joy that dwells far within slow time. Amen.